Hey, hello everyone, all five of you. It's Marty Walzer, the Raging Owlbear from social media, and this is episode 6 of my series on running Storm King's Thunder. I have a slightly different venue this evening. I started a 3D print in the other room, and it's really loud, so I couldn't really record in there. So I thought I'd put up this lovely backdrop for the home office, so it would be something interesting to look at rather than just some blank walls and some furniture behind me. This is the Dragon Beach Towel, which is up there with the 3 wolves howling at the moon style. I mean, I love it. It's so cheesy. It's beyond cheesy. It is literally the 3 wolf moon version. If D&D had a 3 wolf moon, this would be it. It's such a cheesy beach towel, but it's also really awesome. I mean, what could you want more than this awesome dragon with like treasure and swords and stuff when you're lying out on the beach, wearing a big sign that says nerd across everything. But anyways, yeah, so I'm in a different room. Decided to put something up to give some visual appeal other than my lovely face. And slightly shaven. Still a little bit 5 o'clock shadow. But anyways, Storm King's Thunder. Before we jump into that, though, I'm going to do my thing where I talk about some general topics, and then I'll get into some Storm King's Thunder content. So if you're watching this, there won't be any spoilers for the first half or thereabouts. I'll try to remember to call it out. Couple things in terms of little personal promotion. If you've liked the series so far, please go ahead and like all those videos if you've watched them. I'll like them even if you haven't watched them. Just like them. Because, I've got, like I said, got maybe 5-10 people watching. It'd be nice to have 15. If I could get to 15 people. Actually, I've got like 30 subscribers now, which, woohoo! All right, yeah. You got to start somewhere. So subscribers, tell your friends to subscribe if they're running Storm King's Thunder. Don't tell your players to subscribe because I'll spoil everything. Actually, that's not true. I'm not that spoily. But be that as it may, I'm sorry, I'm just babbling on at this point. Like the videos. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And check out the blog too, ragingowlbear.blogspot.com. I don't think I promote it that much in the videos, but I do talk each time I do one of these videos about stuff I've written on the blog recently. And one of the things I have been doing recently is compiling a Dungeon Master 101 series. I can't use the word Dungeon Master, though, especially if I ever want to put it into a book or something down the road, because Dungeon Master is intellectual property owned by Wizards of the Coast. That's why everybody says Game Master. If you're not Wizards of the Coast, you're Game Master or Lore Master or Gamekeeper or whatever, something other than Dungeon Master, because that is what is referred to as product identity in Wizards of the Coast parlance and in lawyer parlance. So you're not technically supposed to use the word Dungeon Master when you're promoting something that you're writing or, yeah. I'm not actually sure how people like Mike Shea get away from saying stuff like lazy Dungeon Master, because that is weakening the intellectual property of Wizards. I shouldn't say that. Sorry, Mike. I don't mean to call you out. It's not what I was trying to do. I'm just pointing out how it's very, some people are able to walk that line and get away with it. But that's cool. He has good stuff. Actually, go out. He's doing a new Kickstarter right now. Buy his book. It's only like $8 PDF. And that actually segues perfectly into my next topic, because on the blog, I also wrote a little bit about being poor in the RPG industry. In a sense. And well, really what my point is that, it's awesome that Matt Colville, has raised $1.5 million in, a few weeks with his Kickstarter. Clearly people love his content and he's good. He has a really good flow, and his edits are good. I mean, he has talent. There's no doubt about it. But I also want to point out to people who are spending their hard-earned money that there's a lot of other people with amazing talent that don't get the same attention because they're not on YouTube. And there's a lot of really good game designers and publishers, self-publishers out there. And I linked to them on the blog, some of them, and there's a whole bunch more that I didn't even put on the blog that probably should be. But especially if you're a game master, if you're a dungeon master, and you're running 5th edition, there are so many people that are making not just great adventures, you know, I mean, there's the Adventure League stuff like that, but also side treks, like those little mini adventures, those things that you can totally just drop into a session at the drop of a hat. You know, you don't know what you're going to run this week, and you don't have a lot of time to prep. And, you know, there's all these publishers that are doing great little books, and they're 10 or 15 or just short, simple adventures. And Mike Shea is one of them. And Kobold Press has 2 books, one Prepared and Prepared 2. And they're just mini adventures that, like, oh, I don't have anything to run this week. Quick page through and, you know, throw something in there. You know, they're sort of generic, you know, short 1 or 2 session adventures that you can drop in when you don't have anything else to run, or you're trying to bridge to the next large piece of content. And, you know, just that there are times, you know how it is. You're a dungeon master. If you're watching this, there are times when you just like, oh, man, I don't know what I'm going to run this week. And you're not looking to do something, you know, well, WotC only offers huge hardbacks right now. You might be in the middle of one, but you want to add some extra content along the way, because there are gaps that need to be filled. And there are just so many people publishing good stuff. Dan Coleman is on Drive Through RPG. MT Black, I mentioned. Teo Sabadia, Alpha Stream. DM David publishes stuff on his blog. You know, like I said, Kobold Press, Goodman Games. Goodman Games has all these great new 5th edition modules that are out that are those sort of 24 to 32 page, you know, thickness, you know, nothing. So something you could run in a few sessions. You know, just like their old Dungeon Crawl Classics for 3rd edition. You know, they're doing the same thing in 5th edition, or building these modules that are easy to pop into your game. And I mean, there's lots of them. But yeah, you know, I did an article on the blog. There's links on the blog for some of the ones I really like. Frog God Games. You know, there's just lots of people putting out great adventure material, and a book's worth of 10 or 12 or even as many as 15 encounter locations or mini adventures, side treks, other things. You know, on DM's Guild, of course, there's people that do ones that are related to the current to, you know, whatever the current module of the week is, what module of the week, you know what I mean? Whatever their hardback is, so the Storm King's Thunder or Tomb of Annihilation, Princes of the Apocalypse, people are writing little side adventures that, you know, if you need something to drop in on any given week, you can do that. And support those guys, because they work hard simply for the love of the game. You know, you don't make a lot of money publishing those kinds of things. You know, it's pennies on the dollar for you for the time that these people invest. But they write great stuff. And so support those designers, support those small publishers, because we need them. There's a lot of content that WotC can't cover, and especially if WotC is focused on the $50 hardback retail, you know, whatever, $35 Amazon. But the point is that they need something with thicker profit margins, and these smaller publishers can put out these smaller press things, release it on the PDF store, or even release it as a softback in their own stores, and they can still make a decent profit margin on it. Support those guys, because we need them. You know, Dungeon Masters, we need that content. If we don't have time to write our own stuff, and who has time to do that? Ain't nobody got time for that. So I just wanted to say, you know, support your local gunfighter, so to speak. The other thing I published on the blog, which is pretty popular, if you haven't read it, even if you have, I'm going to talk about it again, so bear with me before I get into Storm King's Thunder. Metagaming, and I'm going to talk a little bit broader than I talked about on the topic, but basically, I had an incident that occurred in my game a couple weeks back, and afterwards, it just didn't feel right. It just the whole session got screwed up because of my own mistake, and I had kind of thought about why it occurred, and what it boiled down to is and I state this on the blog, but I really like the game world to feel real and immediate. I want my players to be immersed and make decisions as if they are their characters, not knowing what their characters don't know. And that's really what the metagame is about. It's knowledge that you have as a player, either about the mechanics of the game or about the plot of the story or other things that you know as a person that your character on paper would not know. And you can't help but be influenced by your own personal knowledge. It's there, it's in your brain. You can't lock it away. Sometimes you can, if you know a big plot point that's kind of a spoiler or whatever, and you're a good player, and I talk about this too, you can step back from the scene and let the other players who may not know that piece of information do their investigation, ask their questions, and just step back for that part yourself as a player so that they can have the fun of the discovery and learning about the plot and the meta, without you telling them, hey, by the way, there's something you don't know about that NPC, and I read it on a blog or I saw the book, or what. Don't ruin it for other people. I know you want to share your information and get that edge. Sometimes you're like, ooh, I know something, and we have an edge here or whatever. But part of the fun of the game is the mystery and the discovery. And you don't want to ruin that for other people. I mean, that's what it boils down to. Let them get there. Let them make that discovery. Bit of a tangent, but so my point is that for me personally, I it's not that I dislike when my players metagame. It's going to happen, but I try to create an environment where, they shouldn't have to feel like they have to metagame in order to overcome an obstacle. Everything that they need to overcome an obstacle should exist in the information in the game. If you're creating a puzzle that requires I don't want to go there. Actually, that's sort of a bad example, but let me continue that anyways. Sometimes you create a puzzle because there's a player at your table who loves those types of logic puzzles, or maybe you have more than one. We game with geeks, and some of them are IT geeks, some of them are science geeks, and some of them. So a lot of them have these trivial knowledge and whatnot. And if you have those players that love those kinds of puzzles, you might put them in your game because it's entertaining for them, and that's great. That's actually perfectly fine. And sometimes that involves metagaming. If they know some scientific fact or something because of what they do for a living, because of who they are, has nothing to do with their character, the character sheet, person's knowledge. But you do a puzzle that has a little bit of meta knowledge required to solve it. That's fine. That's certainly, especially if it makes if it makes the game fun, absolutely do it. The converse of that, though, is don't make a puzzle that requires that in order to stump them, to stump your players. Don't make everything that your players should have the tools to solve those kinds of puzzles in the game. But this is a tangent. Let's get back to metagaming. So the whole idea is that I had this incident in my own home game that, again, my players were coming up on Grudd, and I had 2 instances where I kind of screwed up in the metagame, and it actually happened on 2 successive weeks, and I didn't even recognize it until later. Actually, the first one I kind of rectified, but be that as it may. The first time is I had the ranger was ahead of the party, scouting the landscape, and found Grudd. You know, they were coming up to Grudd, and so he was up on the hillside or wherever in the woods, looking down upon the big structure. So the first thing I gave him was a printout of the picture from the book. You know, this is the what Grudd looks like from the outside, the giant house and the little barn house next to it and the caves and whatnot. And I gave that to him without letting the other players see. I let him just kind of look at it because he was out scouting in front on his own. So my hope was that he would ask questions and that would generate, you know, some dialogue and blah, 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 blah. And it didn't quite go that way. And so, and the long and short of it is he did get seen. They sounded the alarm. They ran away, or they went and hid basically back in the woods somewhere until the place settled down. But he didn't really get a lot of information out about what he was looking at. You know, he didn't really ask questions about what was in the scene. He kind of looked at it and was like, oh, okay, you know, but he didn't say what's this and what's that, and you know, and he wasn't dissecting it the way I thought he might. And then, you know, and then he rejoins the party, and so that kind of, they didn't get the information about what he saw as much because he hadn't asked some of those questions. So, and trying not to feed him too much and letting him try to evoke those responses from me as a DM. I wanted him to ask the questions. I didn't want to just tell him everything because I want them to discover. I don't want to just throw the plot in front of them and say, this is the plot and these are the things you see and these are the things you do. No, I want them to do that. I want them to make the discovery and have that aha moment, because that's the fun part, at least for me. I think it is for other people. I don't think people want to be spoon-fed that stuff necessarily. So, but that was the first mistake, is that I gave him the picture. I didn't give anybody else the picture. The session ended that night just because it was getting late. And then the whole week I was kind of, to the next session, I was thinking about it. We actually had like we had a week break, but I was thinking about it. I was like, you know what? They don't have enough information, you know? So I ended up taking the scan that I had printed out and I just put it on our personal space, our own little, we have a little Facebook group for just our players. And I put it out there. I said, okay, here's what he saw. Because I wanted everybody to see and discuss, and you know, I wanted them to formulate and plan and stuff like that. And I wanted them to do it a little bit outside of the session, so that when they came to the session, they'd have kind of a plan of an action, or they'd at least be able to ready to talk to that plan of action, discuss amongst themselves what to do next. So I did sort of rectify that, you know, but it took me a few days to be like, you know what, that's having that level of mystery just because everybody else wasn't there at the moment that he was scouting the ridgeline wasn't adding anything to the game. And yet I made the exact same mistake a week later on the next session. And the next session is they're outside Grudd, and they're like, okay, we're going to cast invisibility. You know, one caster is going to cast invisibility, and the other caster is going to cast fly. And we're going to send the rogue in, you know, super stealth, so that he can just do the whole circle the yard, you know, see as much as he can see. And so I took him outside. I took him to the other room and started to talk about what he saw, and he would ask questions and he would tell me where he was going to go. And it took way too long. There was too much information to feed him in the other room without the other players there. and it killed the game. I mean, it killed the session. The other players actually were really cool about it, except for my wife. She let me know. She was like, "Man, that sucked." The other players were like, "No, don't worry about it." It's because they knew I was taking him aside and he was doing the scouting thing. My wife was like, "Yeah, no, don't do that." We were just sitting around waiting, and she was absolutely right. She was right. They waited a while, quite a long time, and it was getting late already. So it's like we got back to the table. He started to tell what he saw, and then I ended up having to sort of correct him anyways, because I knew what his character should have been seeing, and he was trying to relay that to the rest of the table. And I was like, no, actually what you saw was this and that. And so it didn't kill the scene. It absolutely killed the scene. Because I was trying to clamp down on that sort of meta information. What does your character know? What does your character know? It's a dumb idea. Don't do that. I'm telling you from my experience, it didn't make the game more fun. So, you know, what I should have done is done the same scene with them at the table, and maybe suggested that they don't tell him what to do. You know, in other words, they're not allowed to suggest actions to him, but maybe they can ask those clarifying questions. Oh, when you said he saw this, did you mean? You know, so that way he gets the information he needs. After all, he's his player, his character rather. His character is a scout, is a rogue, and should be able to know these things. And sometimes the player may not ask, because you're describing what the character is seeing, and you're not actually in a movie or in, you know what I mean? You don't have the visuals to go with what you're describing. The players aren't always going to ask the right questions because they're trying to imagine in their mind what you are trying to describe, and you're trying to be as accurate with your description so they have a proper mental picture. But that's hard to do, you know, especially when there's a lot of details. That's hard to really give them the full mental picture when there's a lot of details and you're just trying to convey all of this information to one player. So it would have worked a lot better if I just let everybody stay. If I just did it at the table and just say, hey, you guys aren't there. Still making any suggestions, but you can ask questions about what I'm telling him, you know, about what he has actually seen. You can ask clarifying questions, something like that. Just let them be in on the scene so that everybody stays involved, everybody's listening, everybody's engaged. And, you know, we can then just come back to the, you know, after the scene's over, like, okay, it's, you know, his character comes back and tells you all the stuff he saw, which I just told you, so we don't have to repeat it. That's just do it that way, because trust me, the other way did not work. It wasn't good, because I just ended up having to reiterate a lot of things. And again, the players sat and waited for way too long. It just took too long to try to convey all the stuff. You know, he was basically circling the whole compound while he was invisible, and but anyways. So, you know, lesson learned. I should have known that. But again, you know, I'm like, oh, I don't want them to metagame. No, screw that. You know, just sometimes they're going to know things that their characters don't know, and that's okay. It doesn't matter. Because really, you want to just keep the story moving forward. You don't want to present any obstacles that are unnecessary. Like there's always obstacles to solving the adventure, you know, whether that's creatures that are obstacles or traps that are obstacles or a mystery or puzzle. Those are obstacles are fine. But don't use out of game obstacles to create fake ones. The metagame thing. Don't make, you know, that too big of an obstacle. It doesn't add. It didn't help the fun. It absolutely, for me, I felt terrible after the session. I was like, that just did not go well at the end. And it had been a really good session up to that. There was a lot of tension, and people were discussing what do we do and how are you going to do this? And you know, they knew there were a bunch of giants, so they're a little bit shaking in their boots because they're like, well, I don't know, I don't think we can take that many, and blah blah blah. And it took all the air out of that tension, you know. just that everybody's playing on their phones for 20 minutes or half an hour, however long it took. Too long for me to take this one player aside. So don't make the mistake. If you do a player aside thing, keep it very brief, or do it in front of the players, because, you know, and there's nothing wrong with passing notes or doing little, you know, short pieces of information that are meta you can hide from the other players. But yeah, don't do a whole long scene, because it just too long with one player, with the other players sitting on their hands. So yeah. So now they're actually infiltrating. The good thing is that we're back on track. They're infiltrating Grudd, and shit is about to get real. I'm not going to talk about that in this episode, because I like to think about what happened and then do a recap later, and they're still right in the middle, in medias res as it is. But yeah, they snuck in that side cave, killed a couple of the giants, sleeping giants, but then immediately got into a combat that's going to bring a lot of stuff to where they're standing, and they're not sure what to do. And so we hung it. We did a cliffhanger. They killed the first couple of dudes, but now they're in a place they're going to get conversion on pretty quickly. So hopefully, yeah. I mean, I don't want to take it easy on them, but I also don't want to TPK them. So we'll have to see how that goes. I have an out for them. I mean, you know, the Giants do capture prisoners. You know, they have that whole stockade in the back of the area. So, you know, they're not going to kill them outright. You know, I feel like that is still a logical choice for the Giants to make, that they can take prisoners because they want to feed them to goo eventually. And so if that happens, then they'll be taken prisoner, and then they'll have to figure that out. Other ways, they'll have to figure how to go from there. And that might happen because they're in a bad place. Hopefully nobody dies next session. Who knows? You know, actually good tactics they could get out of it. They could withdraw. Where they are in the cave is not completely unescapable. They could withdraw if they have good tactics. And then they've killed a few giants. And so, you know, every time they weaken the giants, makes it easier for next time. So let's talk NPCs. And I've talked about this a little, not this topic, but about NPCs a little bit in the previous videos, because if you watch them, you know that I lament that one of the biggest problems with Storm King's Thunder, I don't know, maybe problem is overstating it. One of the bigger challenges with Storm King's Thunder is the players move around so much that memorable NPCs come and go, or NPCs that could be very memorable are in and out. One scene and they're gone and they're never seen again. Or, you know, maybe they're there for a couple sessions because they're in Tribor, or they're in Golden Fields, they're in Bryn Shander, they're in one of the bigger towns where something eventful is happening, and they meet those NPCs. And maybe they even create a little bit of a role-playing bond with the NPCs in that town. But then they're off to the next place. And unless they come back to Tribor, unless they come back to Bryn Shander, they're just, again, that NPC relationship is gone. So Storm King's Thunder makes it really hard for your players to develop relationships with major NPCs, because none of them stick around. And even the book does a terrible job, in my opinion, of utilizing the NPCs that could be really, really memorable. Zephyros in the beginning, I hated Zephyros. I mean, no, as a concept, actually, I think he's great, but I hate the way he's written. He's written horribly, because oh, we have to, well, you know, the hooks in chapter 1 are terrible. Go to some faraway location and tell somebody that their ex-husband is dead, or that their in-law, or whatever. Somebody's dead. Go to some place that's 400 miles away. Tell somebody's dead. These are terrible, terrible plot hooks. I can't believe Wizards of the Coast let them write whoever wrote that opening chapter needs to sit in a corner and think really hard about what they did wrong, because those plot hooks are horrible. And the way they solve the fact that the players are like, why the hell do I want to, you know, travel 2 weeks? What's in it for me? Why should I travel 2 weeks to tell somebody that they're dead? Then screw that, you know? The way they solve that problem is, oh, well, yeah, you just got picked up by your Uber cloud giant. Hi, I'm Zephyros. I'll be your driver today. We're going to fly that way until the plot tells us to stop flying that way. No, I hate that. Oh, what are they thinking? So Zephyros is a total waste in the book. And so I still haven't introduced him. They've done Golden Fields. They did Triboar, and I haven't brought Zephyros on board because planning to use him in a different way, hopefully. And I think he's going to come up in the next couple of weeks, next couple of sessions. But what it's going to boil down to is you have to come up with a better reason for them to go places, and a better reason for them to have some connection to those NPCs to make them want to go someplace for somebody who's giving them an adventuring hook. So that's probably one of the first things when you're reading through the book and you're setting up your sessions going forward. You're thinking about Triboar, you're thinking about Golden Fields, you're thinking about Bryn Shander. You need to set those NPCs up in advance somehow. Because to make them more memorable, if they just come into town, breeze into town, talk to somebody, oh, I go to the blacksmith shop, talk to him for 5 minutes, and you know they're not going to care about that guy. You know, so what if he died in the orc raid? Oh well, we tried to save him, but you know, Sir No Name over there. So you need to think of ways to get your PCs involved with those NPCs, and I talk about that a little bit in the Triboar and the Golden Fields episode last week or week before. And a good way to introduce some of these NPCs is you can have them be traveling with them for some reason. Well, you know, the players are going to have to move around a lot. So give them some threads to maybe make a little pocket change while they're traveling around. Be like, hey, you guys are going up to the Evermoors? You're going to Calling Horns or one of those places? Yeah, do you mind tag along? We got a group of people coming along. We always, you know, safety in numbers kind of thing. Let's travel together. So give them a group of people to go with. And maybe one of those people is an NPC from that place that you want to introduce to them. So you can have a whole montage of them traveling along with one or more of these NPCs that are from that town that happen to be traveling from out of town back to their homes. And you can create that relationship on the road, on the way there. And then suddenly they have a reason to like that guy and want to do him a favor. Or, you know, he says, hey, you know, I see you know, we fought off that little ambush. You guys are good with a sword. Hey, when we go into town, you know, I'm buddies with the mayor or the whomever, you know, like they can introduce the players to the next NPC, you know, have it be like, oh yeah, you know, I'll do you a favor because I know that they're looking to hire somebody for this other job and it pays pretty well. So why don't I introduce you to the mayor, or the town constable or whomever it is that's got the next hook. You can set up the NPC from the town by having them meet ahead of time, and then you can set up the next hook. And do something similar for the major NPCs that you think are going to play an important role. I tried to, when they went to Golden Fields, they didn't meet any of those people in advance, but I tried to set up a couple people to be potentially recurring in the future. Maxine is a great potential recurring character because she's tied in with either, I don't know, the Lord's Alliance or the Gauntlet. One that she's tied into one of the factions. So you can have them meet in Golden Fields, and then after the Golden Fields attack, she can be like, oh, I got to go somewhere else or whatever. And you can even have them travel with her, or they can travel around, and in the meantime, Maxine has moved around, and then they come back and meet. Oh, hey, yeah, we met you in Golden Fields, so now they're back in Waterdeep, or they're over in Yartur, or they're somewhere else, and they see that NPC again because that NPC had to report to their faction people what was going on. So either you can have the characters join that NPC on their journey, or just meet them later on happenstance. Oh, yeah. Or we were in Everlund, and look, Maxine showed up. And Maxine tells us about the teleportation circles. You can, instead of having a random person introduce a new plot element for them, you've already set up this recurring character to help set up their plot. And so that also brings me back all the way back to people like Zephyros and Harshnag. Lay out the groundwork for those major NPCs beforehand, because then you can turn them into something bigger than they are in the book. I mean, Harshnag plays a big role in the book, but the problem I have difficulty with the way Harshnag is introduced too, because he just kind of shows up and it's like, oh, hey, I'm a good frost giant. Let's adventure together. Because, you can trust me. I'm a frost giant. I'm very trustworthy. I mean, you gotta lay the groundwork for that. You can't just go like, hey, there's a good frost giant. Well, let's travel with them. Because, your players immediately going to be like, yeah, no, I don't trust this guy. Well, this guy's going to betray us in a drop of a hat. So, again, with Harshnag, I laid the groundwork beforehand, and I even introduced other NPCs. They met some Uthgarts, one of the tribes that is not one of the sort of more hostile tribes. They met some Uthgarts from the Sky Ponies, because I thought Sky Ponies were really kind of funny. Well, quick aside, we have a paladin who has a mount, and as a joke, I put a miniature figure on a little My Little Pony, a horse, as his mount, as his paladin's mount. And so it was a running gag. He was a dwarf, and so he said, can I have a boar as a mount? And I was like, sure, I'll give you a boar. And I cut out one of my daughter's My Little Ponies, put the dwarf on My Little Pony. And so when I saw that the Sky Ponies were in the adventure, I was like, oh, man, they got to meet the Sky Ponies, because I'm going to tie those with a neat little bow, make that a campaign in joke. And anyway, so they met Sky Ponies. And the Sky Ponies said, hey, happened to bring up Harshnag. I said, oh, yeah, have you heard about that giant? Yeah, there's a giant that is a good guy and is, has helped out the Uthgarts and has helped out here and there and blah, 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 blah. So I laid the groundwork for, hey, you hear the legend of Harshnag. And Harshnag is actually a woman in my game, a female frost giant. So the Sky Ponies said, oh yeah, the Harshnag, she's hardcore, she kicks some ass and you can trust her and blah, 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 blah. And then they go do the next adventure, and then they're fighting all these trolls and other giants, and there's all kinds of stuff happening. And guess who comes marching down the road to help out? Harshnag makes an appearance, because they're with the Sky Ponies, and they were with Uthgarts, and they were defending this town. And anyways, it's a little bit I don't want to get into the whole story, but the point is that I'd set up Harshnag. I had them get into this huge conflict with trolls and giants and ogres and whatnot. And the players were actually handling it pretty well. Like, it's not like I had to bring in Deus Ex Machina to save their bacon or anything. But I wanted to introduce Harshnag. So Harshnag comes in and starts, wailing on. So they're fighting giants, and there's more coming in. They're like, oh man, these trolls are just going to keep coming and coming. I mean, I had a lot of trolls, and they regenerate and everything. And so Harshnag comes cruising down the road, wielding that great axe, that giant axe, and troll parts are flying, and doesn't matter that they regenerate. Harshnag does so much damage that they're not going to get up for another 2 hours. But it actually worked out because Harshnag was just chopping them down, and then our mage is like, ooh, firebolt, 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 firebolt. Let's make sure they don't get back up. Those types of things. So it worked out. I got to introduce Harshnag. They spoke, and they said, oh, here's what we think is going on. And Harshnag didn't really reveal any plot yet. I hadn't gotten to that point because Harshnag doesn't really know them. But they made a rapport. They met Harshnag. They had a rapport. They parted ways, but they said, hey, let's get in contact with each other if we find something out using the sending spell, which I got to tell you, that's a super powerful spell. That sending spell, that's like the internet for the Forgotten Realms. I mean, you can send a message to anyone. It is Twitter. They turned it into this giant Forgotten Realms version of Twitter. You send them 25 words, they can send you 25 words back. So they're like, yeah, we're gonna keep in touch, and so that way, if we find out something, maybe we can ask Harshnag for help, which they have, and I rejected them. I made them wait because they said, Harshnag, we need you. She's like, I can't, I'm busy. Oh, let me get back to you. Because I didn't want them to, overutilize the DM PC kind of thing. I wasn't going to bring Harshnag in to save their bacon anytime they needed it. And she's very far away from where they are, so it made sense within the narrative. But all that long-windedness was just say, as you're planning your sessions, look at those important NPCs in Golden Fields, in Tribor, in Yartur, in Everland, and any of the major cities that you think your characters are going to go to, or that you are going to try to lead them toward via your plot hooks. You're going to throw out the hook. You want to go here? Okay, no, not there. How about here? Plan for those hooks that you're laying out there. Find someone who can introduce them to those NPCs, those important NPCs. Whether it's another NPC that travels with them, or whether it's a referral, like, oh, hey, you did a favor for Calling Horns, so here's your letter of recommendation. Those commendation letters that are mentioned in Storm King's Thunder, but are also in the DM guide for like alternate versions of treasure. Basically, it says, hey, these guys are heroes. They did us a favor. And so, they bring these letters of recommendation around to other leaders. And so the leaders being like, yeah, who are you? You're just random mercenaries. They're like, no, look, we did work for this guy and this gal. And, look at all these Lord's Alliance people that we have recommendations from, or Order of the Gauntlet. These are official letters saying, hey, we're the good guys. Utilize that as letters of introduction. I, Lord so-and-so, can speak for the valor and goodness of this party, blah, blah, blah. So take advantage of that. The other piece of advice related to NPCs. Now, again, because there are so many and they're not memorable, you definitely have to do a little work to make them stand out in the players' minds. So there's a lot of advice online. I'm not going to go into everything about making a memorable NPC, because there is, you could Google, literally Google D&D make a memorable NPC, and there's articles and videos and stuff like that. But I did want to summarize a couple key points that help me make those people a little bit stick in the brains of the players. Sorry, had a little, my mind was turning over. So one of the things I try to do is, with the important NPCs in the book, or an NPC that I might be coming up with, is, well, have a list of names at the ready, because nothing blows the scene quicker than they're like, hey, what's your name? And you're like, Billboard. Yeah, that's his name. You know, that you gotta have some names at the ready. You know, my campaign world has some different regions that I, Europeanized. You know, these guys over here talk in a German accent, these guys over here talk in a French accent, or something like that. It's just a way for me to give a little fun flavor to the characters, is that I created different accents based on real world accents. And I've got to tell you, well, that gets to my next point. So hold that thought for a second. But so, have a list of names that fit the setting, that don't break the immersion. Because, if you come up with a stupid NPC name, that either that's the NPC that's, for some reason, they're going to glom onto, and they're going to be like, hey, we love Billboard, he's awesome. And you're just going to be like, man, what? Well, why couldn't I come up with something? Don't make it overly complex. Well, then I guess that's the trade-off, is don't make the name so weird, that sort of faux fantasy thing where there's 10 apostrophes in it or whatever. Don't try to over fantasy the name, because then they will make up a nickname that is stupid. And you'll be going, ugh, I can't even think of a good example, except that, you're like, oh, his name is Franzgabal. And they're like, oh yeah, Bali over there, or whatever. They'll take some short piece of his name and butcher it, and it'll drive you crazy if you're trying to create a serious NPC and they just, make a joke out of his name. There's nothing that'll break the immersion for you, and probably for them too. So you can make the names sound culturally appropriate. That's what I did. I have a list of Germanic names. I have a list of Nordic names. I have a list of French and Italian sounding names. I just have like different regional names, and you can do some, you're going to Cholt, maybe you're playing Tomb Annihilation, some Africanized names, some South American names, some, Asian names, of course, for some of the Eastern. Just try to come up with things, and don't stereotype the cultures, but try to come up with something that you can give that NPC a little bit of flavor just through their name. And it informs the character, the players, about that culture a little bit. I mean, let's face it, D&D is just putting primer on top of existing cultural references. It's painting by numbers with, fake cultures. There's fake Asian cultures, there's a fake South American culture in Cholt, and a fake African culture, or there's a fake European culture. There's, you're just because the players, you can't give them something so alien that they don't, you have to give them something familiar. I'm getting off on a tangent again, but my point is that have that name that seems relevant to your game world, that's not too weird and too out there, because they'll just butcher it. But it can, give it just a little bit of an exotic flair if you're from North America, European, African, Asian. Give it a little bit of a flair, so that they, so it's not just Bob, Joe. If you're from one of those other countries, then yeah, make it Bob or Joe, because make it American. Make fun of Americans. I do that all the time. Okay, getting into the second part. So first, the name. Second, quirks and affectations. When I'm writing one of these NPCs that I'm planning to introduce, I write their name, and then I think of 2 or 3 words or a short sentence to describe their personality. So this is the next point that I was getting ahead of myself a minute ago. I had a guy that I said, okay, this guy is going to be kind of a rogue with flair, a little bit of a swashbuckly kind of person, but he's going to have, I kind of went like a pseudo-Italian accent. So I wrote that. I was like, Mediterranean, try to do a Mediterranean accent, something Greek, Italian, just make something sound a little exotic. And he's kind of a swashbuckling kind of dude. And I'm terrible at voices. I got to tell you, the voice things, but, and I know a lot of people out there don't feel they're good at voices, or they're uncomfortable playing that. But I got to tell you, well, A, you'll get more, if you just try it, you'll get more comfortable. But B, your players won't care. They're going to love it regardless. You can be terrible at it, but when you put that little bit of effort into it, and they're going to remember that character. And case in point, I had this one character that they met in a town. And he, like I said, he was very flamboyant and, spoke with this sort of exotic accent. And that was even the funny part of it, is that I tried to do one accent, and then I slipped into a different one, and then I slipped into a different third one. And so they're like, where's this guy from? So they started making, they knew it was me. They know it was my terrible fake Italian, which turned into French, which turned into German. Like, this guy was apparently from every country in Europe. I was trying to nail down some voice affectation, and I failed horribly, but they loved that guy. They thought he was great, and he was just this, he was, like I said, a little bit flamboyant. He was a little bit like, if you've watched Star Wars Rebels, there's that Hondo smuggler character who's just like over the top, like, oh, hello, my friends, how are you doing? And so I did that. I was like kind of playing that, oh, let's have breakfast in the morning, let's just doing these fake accents that were wandering all over the place, and they loved him. And then I made him disappear. That he was going to be part of the mystery, because they meet him, and he's like, yeah, let's get drunk tonight, and then we'll have breakfast in the morning, whatever, I'll meet you guys in the tavern, and we'll talk, because I got a job. Like, oh, I think I have a job for you too. Let's talk. And then he doesn't show up, and he's missing, and then other people are missing, and that was part of the mystery, is that people were disappearing and whatnot. And they love that guy. They met him for one session, and they still remember him because of my over-the-top portrayal of his weird accent that, was 1 minute Italian, and then 2 minutes later was kind of Russian. I don't know. It just went in a weird direction. But yeah, so write down a note. This guy, he has not just his voice. Here's what his voice affectation is, and then here's what his quirk is. And there's lists out on the internet of NPC quirks or personality, things. Does he have a catchphrase? Does he, just anything to just make that stick in your players' minds, to make that guy memorable. And I tell you, it works. Like, I didn't go that deep into him. I didn't know what his motivation was. I wasn't like going to be method actor boy. I wasn't like, oh, what's his motivation? Well, He's a flamboyant rogue, you know. He's a merchant. He's a merchant, which he was, but he was also a little bit on the shady side, but friendly and funny and blah blah blah. So that's all, you know. That's just what I wrote down. I said friendly merchant, a little bit shady, funny accent. You know, boom, there's your NPC. And if you have these names on a list that you can quickly reference behind your DM screen or just on the side somewhere, and similarly on that same, maybe on the same page, like it's just a whole list of personality quirks. So if you have to make up somebody on the fly, you point to the paper, you close your eyes, point, be like, okay, I can play that, and, you know, and just have a list of personality quirks. There's a ton of them out on the internet of, you know, whatever, 101 weird quirks of your NPCs. So look for those. And I'll link, there's a couple of ones that I like that I've used. I'll link them in the notes. So have your name ready. Give them a voice. It doesn't even have to be that weird of a voice. You use just a variation of your own voice. But just give him something that makes him a little bit different than random NPC guy number 1, random NPC guy number 2. Give him some personality trait that'll make him memorable for your players. So yeah, name, voice, quirks. Those 3 things, that's all you need to make that NPC a little bit more memorable. A good name, a good personality note, and some little something. Flamboyant, or he's dour, or he's, you know. That's the other thing. Don't go against type. The dwarf shouldn't be dour. Make the elf dour, and make the dwarf be the party guy. Like, woohoo, yeah, I'm out of the cave. I'm ready to party. Like, let's drink. Let's beat up goblins. Let's go. Yeah, party dwarf. Everybody loves party dwarf. Everybody loves flamboyant rogue. Everybody loves party dwarf. Nobody loves dour elf, actually. Everybody hates dour elf. But that makes him memorable, too. You know, you want those guys to stick in their minds. They're going to love that. They're like, oh, you meet there's these 3 guys. They travel together, too. They're kind of a party. They want to join you for a little bit. Dour elf, party dwarf, flamboyant rogue, you know, whatever. I guarantee you they will remember that guy 10 sessions down the road, 20 sessions down the road. You know, the flamboyant rogue that I had, they actually never found his body, but they found his hat. And the cleric in the party now wears his hat, like took the hat in memory of him. They said a little, you know, prayer or whatever of service. We never found the body, but we're sorry you died, because we're pretty sure you did. Pretty sure you got 8. But we're going to take your hat in memory and wear it. And so my party's cleric still wears that guy's hat. And I'm going to try to play with that too. I meant to do that months ago, actually. It just never... Sometimes these ideas you have just never come to fruition the way you think they're going to. But I think I'm gonna revisit the hat at some future date. I've been trying to think of how would this guy have survived, because clearly he didn't. He got ate up. But I want to bring some element of, they loved him so much, and that's the other thing is when you kill off those NPCs, that kills you because your party has made this connection, and you're like, oh man, I should have killed off somebody else. But it made their death, the fact that your party has a connection with that NPC, when they do die, it makes it important. Because there's a lot of NPCs that are going to die in Storm King's Thunder that the PCs don't care about. Like I said, they go to Tribor, they go to Golden Fields. There's civilians are going to die in those attacks. And Brink Shander, people are going to get, beaten up. And the players are going to be like, all right, well, we survived. That's what's important. So that's my spiel on NPCs. That went a lot longer than I thought it would too. Last point about Storm King's Thunder. Some people haven't played the opening chapter, chapter 1, and instead have come from the starter set, Lost Mines of Phandelver. And I was talking on social media on Facebook with some of the people there and spitballing ideas about that too, because that is probably actually more common than not, is that people are coming from Lost Mines of Phandelver. And so there's a couple of things. In Lost Mines, they might be 4th or 5th level when they come into Storm King's Thunder. So you want to transition them, you can just transition them right to some hook into Tribor, Golden Fields, Brinchander. Yeah, you can do that right away. As I said, in my game, my characters are already leveled up too, and I still ran Chapter 1. I knew it was not going to be difficult for them from a combat perspective, even though I did buff the monsters. But I wanted to introduce certain elements of the plot in terms of the giants stole the Nightstone. In my game, that's more important than it ended up being in the book. In the book, they don't give a damn why the giants stole the Nightstone. And they never explain it. They never come back to it. You know, the cloud, you never like find the cloud giant who has the Nightstone. It's a total red herring. It's just a matter of foreshadowing that the giants are attacking, you know, non-giant people for mysterious reasons. But I wanted to give a reason for the Nightstone, so I made that something more in my game. But oh yes, sorry. So getting back to transitioning from Lost Mines, so you can still play that opening chapter with higher level characters. You just have to do some adjustments. I talk about that in my blog. I talk about that in a previous video. You know, add hobgoblins, make the ogres into hill giants. You know, just beef everything up. So go look at my previous video. Go read the blog on what I did for my group. That's one way. Or, like you said, if they've done Lost Mines of Phandelver, they've probably found the Forge of Spells. This is an idea I came up with when somebody asked about it. Is the fire giants are trying to build the Vonadad, so they need things that can enchant. You know, they need the Steal the Titan from Galtgrim, you know, to run their forges. Maybe they need the Forge of Spells. Maybe they need other enchanted items to put into the mix and do a big ritual and whatever. And out comes the giant Vonadad robot monster. So have the giants wander into Phandalin, you know. The hill giants could be looking for food. The fire giants could be trying to find Wave Echo Cave themselves and see if they can get that Forge of Spells. You know, I can't remember how big Wave Echo's Cave, if you can even fit a giant in there. You know, is it all 10-foot ceilings and narrow passageways? Then yeah, that's gonna be a little hard. But my point is still that you can have your characters still be in Phandalin and introduce elements of Storm King's Thunder. And I like the idea about the fire giants. So do that, or do what I did and use Nightstone but with higher level creatures, or, you know, go ahead and tease them right into Tribor, right into Golden Fields somehow with somebody in Phandalin. And like I said, it can be figure out which NPC you need to come through Phandalin or to be there to meet them, that will then introduce that next spot point or give them that hook to Golden Fields or Tribor. There's a lot you can do, you know, just you know, let your brain churn on it. How do I get Phandalin involved? And it's right there, you know, it's not far from the other things that are going on right around there. So look in the book and see what else is happening in the vicinity and move one of those encounters to Phandalin or the outskirts. Not hard to do. And tease them into the next spot point. So yeah, that's it. It's gone long, another an hour. You know, I was going to say at the beginning of the video that maybe this will be a short one because I don't have a lot of Storm King Thunder specific content to talk about. I just wanted to talk about NPCs and some of the other stuff. But here we are. It was another long one. So I hope you watched. and I hope you get something out of it. So I'm Marty Walzer, ragingowlbear.blogspot.com. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, go visit the blog. I think it's pretty good. And tell your friends to read the Game Master 101 articles on the blog, because they've done some pretty good traffic, so it's not just me that thinks they're good, I guess. So I've gotten a lot of hits on those. So enjoy, have fun, and I'll see you in a week or two.